Hey everyone, Jeremiah Secrest here with First Team Real Estate in Huntington Beach. I am joined by my friend and long-term mortgage partner, John Soricelli with JandJ Lending, also out of Huntington Beach. And John and I just wanted to get together and chat a little bit today about current market trends in buying real estate in this during this pandemic, and also kind of what's going on out there and show you some trends. So John, thank you very much for joining me today.
Absolutely.
Uh,
Appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you. I really look forward to your insight. You know, you've always guided me and my clients well over the last 10 years. So looking forward to kind of going over some of this stuff with you and getting your insight for the people out there. So a couple of things that I just wanted to talk about, you know, and some of the questions that are floating around out there. Are people buying houses right now? Is this a good time to buy? Is anything, you know, there's questions about loans, but just to give you a little snippet, over the last 7 days in Huntington Beach, and we'll just focus on Huntington Beach here because that's where we're both located, but over the last seven days, 34 properties have come on the market in Huntington Beach. Give you an idea and give the people out there an idea. And in the last 30 days during this pandemic, 75 homes have closed in Huntington Beach. So not the same level that we're used to as far as active listings. I think they're going to be coming. One of the reasons I wanted to talk to you, because people need to get prepared for buying in the summer as we kind of reopen and get things going again, and hopefully the economy gets going again. But 75 closed homes in the last 30 days and 34 new listings in Huntington Beach. So U.S. homeownership has risen. A couple of stats for you. U.S. homeownership has risen to its highest level in eight years, which I think is fantastic. Homeownership over time has created a tremendous amount of wealth for people. And some recent stats that came out was that 58.7% of all homes in America have at least 60% equity. So I know that you deal with a lot of buyers, John. That's a big chunk of wealth that's being created for people out there. 60% of that, of those 58.7% of homes that have that equity, 42% of them are owned free and clear. I know that you deal with that from a refinance standpoint and people leveraging their homes there, but it's tremendous amount of wealth that's created. Average person has $177,000 in equity in their home based on the study that was done. So John, a real world scenario that happened with me recently, and I want to get your feedback and how it would break down from a lending standpoint, is that I listed a property in Costa Mesa a couple weeks ago for $629,000. Okay, we put it up, and in the first 4 days, really the first 3 days of it being active on the market, we had 4 offers on the home. If we kind of flash back to last year, I listed the exact same floor plan in the exact same community last summer, and we listed that home for $610,000, and we had to wait, I think it was about 3 or 4 weeks, really about a month before we had an offer, and we ultimately sold it for just under $600,000. So we listed it a year ago for $610,000, sold under right around $595,000. This year, pandemic, interest rates, everything going on, we list for $629,000, get 4 offers in 3 days, sell it for full price. So can you tell me a little bit about how interest rates maybe have caused that? Give me a little bit of insight of what you think may have caused that difference.
Yeah, it's interesting. Well, you know, once again, I appreciate the opportunity to chat here today, and it's always a struggle, right? The camera's here, you're here. What am I looking at? What am I paying attention to? Am I looking at you? Am I looking at the camera? But anyways, so the scenario you just gave is very popular and very typical, and the reason why I say that is because of a couple pieces. First off, interest rates are super low right now. They're the lowest they've ever been. And we've heard these terms before, but they're true, right? They keep getting lower, and it's the lowest that they've ever been. And, you know, I look at this stuff pretty regularly, especially considering we've been doing this for 20 years and clients have questions. And interest rates today, let's just call it May 14th. I know it's the 18th, but May 14th, weekend stats, right? The average Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac, I should say, 30-year fixed mortgage rate was 3.28%. And that had a little bit of point comparison, but that's not John's rates. That's not someone else's rates. We're just talking about the average rates right now, which is generally $510,000 loans or less. That's kind of the way it works out. which fits perfectly for that scenario that you just talked about, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Clients buying a $600,000 or a $630,000 house, they're putting down 20%. The average rate for that client nationwide is 3.28%. Well, a year ago today, May 16th, so basically day for day, the average interest rate was 4.07% with the same level of cost. Once again, not John's stats. You could pull up the reports. They're out there. There's a nice big spreadsheet that you can go look at, right? So that's about an 80 basis points or, 0.75% rate different, almost a full percentage point rate difference.
That's pretty amazing.
It's huge. It's huge. And what's interesting from what you just discussed is that you had 4 people trying to buy the home that you're selling today. That's basically $30,000 more than what you sold that same home for last year.
Yeah. Same floor plan.
Same floor plan. Exactly. Same type of home, right?
Yeah.
So what are we talking about here? What's the differences? Well, believe it or not, that buyer at a $630,000 price is saving about $150 a month in comparison than if they would have bought the home for $610,000 like you listed it for originally.
So the prices are
or even less.
The price is basically $20,000 higher, but the monthly payment is 100 and what did you say?
100. So if we look at the purchase price, right? Sorry, if we look at the list price, right? You listed that home at 610 and you're listing this home at 630. Yeah. Granted, that home sold for less, right? But correct. The difference is $20,000. The client is saving, the buyer is saving $148 a month.
$150 for simple math for me.
Because the rate is 0.75% less.
Wow.
So that's the reason why you're seeing so much demand still. With interest rates being as low as they are, you can buy a house more expensive than you could have and still save money.
Yeah, that's really awesome.
And the other piece behind that is the price point. Really, anything that's going to be in a price point of $1 million or less is super competitive because as you dig into a lot of these stats further, new home starts. What does that mean? That means builders pulling permits to build new homes is less, which means that there's less inventory, which means that there's less lower price homes, which means that there's more competition.
Yeah. I definitely,
still wins.
As a listing agent and representing buyers too, but as a listing agent in this market, I've definitely seen the competition. 2 weeks ago, I was showing property in the $1.2 million range, and I had an all cash buyer. I'm sorry for that, but cash is king still. I had an all cash buyer, and we were looking at a $1.2 million house, and clients loved it. That afternoon, we submitted an offer, and when I submitted the offer for the buyer, the listing agent called me back and said, well, Jeremiah, we have 3 other offers, and yours is the lowest. And we came in at a really strong all cash offer, but we were the lowest one and we didn't get it. And it's just a competitive market and all price. I'm seeing it in all price points.
Yeah.
Huntington Beach, Orange County, mainly focusing in Huntington, Costa Mesa, Newport, but I'm seeing it in all price points around us. And it is the purchasing power. I think people have to understand that prices haven't really changed. And in some scenarios, prices have gone up since last year, right? But the purchasing power, like you just said, I mean, a 3.28% on a national average, again, just national averages that we're looking at versus a 4.07% rate, that changes if you were looking at buying a $600,000 home, what can you buy a $650,000 home now? Right. I mean, that's pretty amazing. And I think people have to understand that it's a great time because money's inexpensive and your dollar's stronger today from a lending standpoint than it was a year ago.
Yeah, for sure. And, we're discussing, this price point, this interest rate, this national average, right? Yes, we're seeing clients getting even lower rates today than what these national averages are. But if we're being fair, then clients were getting also lower rates last year, right? So proportionally, it just kind of gives you a good gauge that it's about, 0.75% lower. And, you mentioned how, cash is king, which it absolutely is. And you put in a strong offer on that for that client and didn't win. There is still financing available even in the jumbo space. And a lot of times people right now are kind of hearing or concerned that, what are the options that are available and is there still the opportunity out there? And we can do loans up to $10 million for people still. So there's still regularly financing available. And, you know, we also do business. We're in Huntington Beach. We do a lot of business local, but we do business all throughout California. And we have clients in LA that are in a very similar situation that are multiple offers.
Yep.
And so, you know, that activity, because inventory is low and the buyers are serious and the sellers are serious, there's still good activity at for the right properties.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. And the time to get out there, and you know, we kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, but I think as we start to shift in this market, our inventory levels are extremely low right now. In Huntington Beach, we're 31% below what we were this time last year from an inventory standpoint. So there's not as many options out there. And I think that's part, you know, these low interest rates, great purchasing power, the low inventory. And that's why all of a sudden, you know, whether it's a $630,000 house or a $1.2 million house, you're getting 3-4 offers within days, you know, especially if it's a good house, but there's all kinds of variables that go into that, but you're still seeing at different price levels because there's fewer options. So if you're buying, it's great to borrow right now because rates are so low, but if you're selling, you also have a competitive advantage in putting your house on the market because of the low inventory, right? So I think those are, you know, to kind of give people some confidence and maybe some positive in everything that's going on right now, is that if you're thinking about it, get prepared.
Yeah.
Right. They need to reach out to you. And in today's market, has the pre-qualification or the pre-approval process, has that changed at all for you? Or what does that look like today?
You know, it's funny. If anything, it's made it better. And here's the reason why. You know, I got a phone call on Thursday again from, this past Thursday before the weekend, that from a realtor partner and from a client that wanted to go look at a house on Friday, and they couldn't get in without a pre-approval letter.
Yep.
So, you know, you've always needed a pre-approval to put in an offer, but the open houses were there, right? Or you had the ability to kind of go see the property based off of just making sure that we're doing business in a safe fashion. You can only get in to see that property if you've been fully pre-approved. Now, the process hasn't changed for us. You know, we still have the ability to do a lot of it remotely, electronically, via phone calls, via document exchange, all that great stuff. And we delivered that pre-approval letter so the client was able to go and see that house on Friday. And, you know, we make sure we do all the heavy lifting on that loan process for the client up front. So what does that mean? That means that we're looking at all financial information. We're looking at the credit report. We're looking at asset information. We're running all the necessary underwriting programs. We're making sure that the client is rock solid. So when we tell them they're pre-approved, there's nothing but smiles as they go through that home buying process, right? No disappointments, no changes on them, right? So that process hasn't changed for us, but the onus or the need to make sure you have it before you can even see a home is now even more prevalent today.
Yeah, I would mirror that as well. On the, you know, if I'm calling to schedule showings or if I'm a listing agent, one of the requirements I think 99% of us realtors are doing now is that we want to see serious buyers. And that means we need the pre-approval before. And before we would let people call and schedule an appointment, come see it, no big deal. Now there's a lot of guidelines that we have to follow. And we also want to know that people are qualified before we even let them in just to take a tour of the home. So it's a great point. Thank you for bringing that up. You know, and kind of moving forward in this, and, you know, we want to kind of keep this short, but if there's anything, you know, that to kind of end on a positive note for you and for us too, I feel good about this market. And I don't know about you, but I feel really good about it. I think there's a lot of good opportunity. I think if you are looking forward, get prepared now. If you want to buy a home in 2020, start the process now and just consider your options. You don't have to buy, but I think people should be reaching out to you and getting prepared and looking at that cost savings with the purchasing power and the lower interest rates. But are there any kind of, we kind of touched on this a little bit, but a success story or whatever, just to kind of end on a positive note here. We want to let people know how we can get in touch with us, and we'll do that in a second, but anything that's kind of been positive that's been happening for you.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would just begin by saying, I think the value, and I don't mean value financially, I mean value emotionally and mentally and personally of a home has done nothing but increase. And from that perspective, right, a lot of folks that had rented or had owned a smaller property is looking for the ability to have a larger home and understand a little bit more about the features that they want in their property. That being said, you know, there's nothing to lose in a conversation with me and my team to evaluate your options and go through that pre-approval process to determine how much your payment could be, how much your your purchasing power might look like, and to begin to evaluate with you, Jeremiah, afterwards, what properties are out there that meet those criteria, right?
Yep.
There's free, no cost, it's just the ability to kind of figure that out, right? And you can do that. You can purchase a new home with little to no money down, right? And most people don't realize that as well. And still, even with less than perfect credit. And most people don't realize that as well too. So there's still a lot of opportunity out there. And we've seen success for multiple offer situations very regularly, because who you work with is very important. And, we as a lender get on the phone with that listing agent or that realtor, and we discuss the profile of our borrower. We discuss all the things that we did to ensure they're going to be successful, and we're not going to get into escrow, get into contract together, and then not close. So by doing those things, and by having that conversation with the listing agent, and by having all our I's dotted and our T's crossed, we've been successful regularly in winning in those multiple offer situations. Frankly, we had a first-time home buyer not too long ago that was interested, that had been waiting on the sidelines. They realized now with these low rates, they wanted to get fully pre-approved, which we did on like a Wednesday. They got fully pre-approved by that Friday. They went out to see a house that weekend. They put in an offer in that weekend. They won in the multiple offer situation. We were on the phone with the listing agent on a Sunday, and we had kind of flown through the whole process for them, that they're signing their loan documents tonight, 10 days later, 20 days ahead of schedule. And that's
awesome.
Still happening in today's environment.
Well, I know I can give you a testimony over the last 10 years. You've helped many of my clients. You've helped me personally with financing and buying homes. And I know that you've continued to work with many of the people that you and I have worked with over the years together, through refinances, through other purchases. We've done multiple transactions together with the same people. And really, you always deliver. You always over deliver. You never overpromise. So I've always appreciated that about you. And, I really, if anybody has any questions, I kind of want to wrap this up, but if anybody has any questions or they want more information in regards how that they can buy a home or get prepared to buy a home in 2020, simply just DM either one of us. Make a comment in the notes or just DM us the word loan, and we'll reach out to you and we'll get you set up with some information and get the conversation going on what it takes to buy a home in this market and in 2020 and how it could benefit you. John, you want to share your telephone number with everybody out there?
Yeah, sure.
If they wanted to call or text.
I'm sure I'll put it in the comments or whatever, but it's 949-478-FUND, right? So that's 949-478-3863. You can feel free to text or call, and love the opportunity to chat. Any questions you might have.
Beautiful. Well, John, thank you again so much for joining me on this little short conversation. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to working with you with some of those clients out there, and get out there and consider buying a home. It really is worth your time. Thanks, Absolutely. John. Have a great day.